Millionaire finds his ex at his mother's hospital bed, shocked to learn she secretly raised his triplets. If you missed part 1, you can watch it first by clicking on our channel. Now, let's begin the most beautiful part 2. Chapter 6, The Mother's Confession. 2 o'clock came with the weight of Judgment Day. Darren arrived at the hospital an hour early, unable to sit still in his empty penthouse, unable to focus on anything except the approaching moment when he'd see his sons again. This time knowing, this time understanding what they meant, this time with permission, fragile and conditional, but permission nonetheless, to be near them. He'd spent the morning preparing in ways that felt simultaneously ridiculous and essential. He'd researched child development, read articles about connecting with children, watched videos about being present. All of it felt inadequate. All of it felt like trying to learn surgery from a textbook before being handed a scalpel. He waited in his mother's room, the only space where his presence made sense. Lorraine was awake today, more alert than she'd been in days, though the machines surrounding her told a different story. Her body was failing even as her mind cleared. Nervous? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Terrified. Good. Fear means you understand what's at stake. She paused, gathering strength. But don't let them see the fear. Children can smell desperation. They'll either take advantage of it or retreat from it. Be steady, be present, be honest, without overwhelming them. I don't know how to talk to kids, then listen instead. Children spend their whole lives being talked at. Someone who actually listens becomes memorable. He nodded, filing away her advice. Despite everything she'd done wrong, she understood children in ways he didn't, had raised him after all, however imperfectly. I need to tell you something, Lorraine continued. While we're alone, while I still can. Mom, save your strength. I'm dying, Darren. We both know it. The doctors give me days, maybe a week. I don't have time to save strength. She fixed him with eyes that were still sharp despite the medication. I'd lied to you about more than just faith. His stomach dropped. What do you mean? The company. Our success. I told you we built it together, that it was family legacy. But your father didn't die in an accident. He killed himself. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Darren gripped the bed railing to steady himself. What? He was depressed. Had been for years. The business was failing. We were drowning in debt. And one day, he decided he couldn't carry it anymore. Left me alone with a company on the brink of collapse and a young son to raise. Tears streamed down her weathered face. I worked like a demon to save it. Sacrificed everything. And I did save it. Turned it profitable. Built it into something real. But I also built a lie around your father's death because I couldn't bear for you to know the truth. That he'd chosen to leave us. That we hadn't been enough to make him stay. Darren couldn't process this. His entire childhood had been shaped by the story of his father's tragic accident, the narrative of a good man taken too soon. Why tell me this now? Because I see myself in Faith, Lorraine said. I see a mother working herself to death trying to provide for her children, trying to give them stability even when everything inside is breaking. And I see the damage my choices did to you. How I made you afraid to trust, afraid to be vulnerable, afraid that love meant weakness. She struggled to breathe, the machines beeping frantically until she calmed herself. I don't want you to make my mistakes. I don't want you to choose pride over presence. I don't want you to lie to your sons about who you are or what happened because you're ashamed. They deserve better. You deserve better. I don't even know who I am right now, Darren admitted. Everything I thought I knew is wrong, then figure it out, but do it while being there for them. Do it while being honest. Do it while building something real instead of running away like your father did, like I did in my own way, like you've been doing your entire adult life. Before he could respond, before he could even begin to unpack this revelation, voices echoed in the hallway. Children's voices. His heart began to race. Faith appeared in the doorway, the 3 boys trailing behind her. They looked different in daylight, more real somehow, less like apparitions from a dream. Bruce carried a backpack covered in stickers. Peter clutched a worn stuffed animal. Clark walked closest to Faith, his hand gripping her sleeve. Boys, you remember Grandma Lorraine, Faith said gently. She's having a better day today, so we can visit for a bit. They filed in carefully, respecting the sacred space of the sick room. Bruce went directly to Lorraine's bedside, standing on his toes to see her better. "Hi, Grandma," he said, with the easy affection of someone who'd done this many times. "We brought you drawings from art class. Did you, sweetheart?" Lorraine's face transformed, love erasing pain temporarily. "I can't wait to see them." Peter approached more shyly, offering his artwork with nervous hands. "I drew our family, see? That's me and Bruce and Clark and Mommy and you." Darren looked at the drawing over Peter's shoulder. 5 stick figures, carefully colored, holding hands in a line. His family, but he wasn't in it. Didn't exist in this child's understanding of who mattered. "It's beautiful," Lorraine told Peter, her voice catching. "But I think you might be missing someone." "Who?" Peter looked genuinely confused. "Well," Lorraine glanced at Faith, who gave a subtle shake of her head. "Maybe you'll add more people as you go. Families can grow, you know." Clark hung back, observing everything with his usual intensity. His eyes landed on Darren, studying him with that same unsettling directness from before. "You're still here," Clark observed. "I am," Darren confirmed, trying to sound natural. "My mother is sick, so I'm staying close by, like we stay close to Mommy when we're sick," Clark said, making connections. "Exactly like that." "Bruce." "Peter Clark," Faith interjected smoothly. "This is Darren. He's Grandma Lorraine's son. He'll be visiting too sometimes." "At the same time as us?" Bruce asked, his tone suspicious. "Protective. Sometimes, yes. Is that okay?" Bruce shrugged with the elaborate casualness of someone trying to appear unaffected. "I guess, as long as he doesn't make Grandma tired. She needs lots of rest." "I won't," Darren promised. "I'll be very quiet." "You weren't quiet last time," Bruce countered, his memory sharp. "You were arguing with Mom. We could hear you from the hallway." Faith's expression flickered with embarrassment and warning. "Bruce, that's enough. But it's true. You said we should always tell the truth, and that's the truth." They were arguing, out of the mouths of children. Darren had underestimated how observant they were, how much they noticed, despite adults' attempts at discretion. "You're right," Darren said, surprising everyone. "We were arguing, and I'm sorry if that upset you. Sometimes adults disagree about things. But we're working on it." Bruce studied him with new interest. "Most adults don't admit when they're wrong. Then I guess I'm learning to be different than most adults." This earned a small nod of approval. Not acceptance, but acknowledgement. It was something. Peter approached Darren then, still holding his stuffed animal, a threadbare rabbit with one ear hanging by threads. "What do you do when you're not visiting your mom?" The question was innocent, but the answer felt loaded. What did he do? What could he say that wouldn't sound either meaningless or overwhelming? "I work," Darren answered carefully. "At a company. But honestly, it's not very interesting." "What's the company do?" "It helps other companies organize their work better." Peter's nose wrinkled. "That sounds boring." "It kind of is," Darren admitted with a small laugh. "What do you like to do?" "I like drawing. And stories. Mom reads to us every night before bed. 3 books each, and we take turns picking." The pride in Peter's voice was evident. This was clearly a treasured ritual. "That's wonderful. Your mum must get very tired." "She does," Peter said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes she falls asleep in the middle of reading. But that's okay. We just cover her with a blanket and read to ourselves." The image destroyed Darren. Faith so drained from holding everything together that she passed out during bedtime stories, and her children so accustomed to it that they developed systems to cope. Clark drifted closer, still silent, but listening intently. When he finally spoke, his question cut straight to the core. "Do you have kids?" The room went very still. Faith's eyes snapped to Darren's face, warning and pleading in equal measure. Lorraine held her breath, and Darren understood that this moment mattered. That honesty had limits when truth could shatter careful foundations. "I do," he said carefully, choosing his words with precision. "But I haven't been able to see them much. I'm hoping to change that." "Why couldn't you see them?" Clark pressed. "Children had no sense of polite boundaries when curiosity struck. Because I made mistakes. Big ones, and I'm trying to fix them now." "What kind of mistakes?" "Clark, baby, that's personal," Faith intervened gently. Sometimes adults have complicated situations that aren't easy to explain. But I want to know, Clark insisted, his eyes never leaving Darren's face. If you have kids and you made mistakes, does that mean you're a bad dad? The question hung in the air, devastating in its innocence. Faith looked stricken. Lorraine's tears flowed freely. And Darren felt the weight of truth pressing down on him. Yes, he answered honestly. I think I probably am, or was. But I'm trying very hard to become a better one. How? Clark demanded. How do you become better? I don't fully know yet, Darren admitted. But I think it starts with being there, with listening, with caring more about being present than about being right, and with accepting that the people I hurt might never forgive me, but trying anyway because they deserve better than my absence. Clark absorbed this with serious consideration. That sounds hard. It is hard. The hardest thing I've ever tried to do, but you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway. Something shifted in Clark's expression. Not acceptance, but respect, maybe. Recognition that Darren had spoken to him like a person rather than dismissing his questions. Okay, Clark said simply, then moved to climb onto the chair beside Lorraine's bed. Bruce had been watching this entire exchange with hawk-like attention. Your kids are lucky, he said suddenly, that you're trying to be better. Some kids never get that chance. The words pierced through every defense Darren had left. Because Bruce didn't know he was talking about himself. Didn't know that he and his brothers were the kids Darren was trying to be better for. The irony was almost unbearable. I hope so, Darren managed. I hope someday they'll think I'm worth knowing. If you keep being there, they probably will, Bruce said, with the wisdom of someone beyond his years. Mom always says that consistency matters more than perfection. That even if you mess up sometimes, as long as you keep trying, that's what counts. Darren's eyes found Faith's across the room. She looked away quickly, but not before he saw the emotion there. She'd raised these boys to believe in second chances, in redemption, in the power of sustained effort. Even while she herself refused to trust him, she'd taught them principles that might eventually allow them to. Your mom sounds very wise, Darren said. She is, all three boys chorused in unison. Their agreement absolute and immediate. Faith cleared her throat, clearly overwhelmed. All right, boys. Let's let Grandma Lorraine rest a bit. We can do homework in the waiting area. Can we show Darren our homework? Peter asked suddenly. He seems nice. Maybe he knows about math. I hate math. Faith hesitated, clearly torn between protecting her sons and honoring the agreement they'd made. That's up to Darren. He might be busy. I'm not busy, Darren said quickly. I'd love to help with homework. If that's okay with you, Faith. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. 30 minutes. In the waiting area where I can see you. And if anyone gets uncomfortable, we stop immediately. Understood. They migrated to the waiting area, an odd little parade of a mother, 3 boys, and a man trying to become their father. Faith settled into a chair with a clear view of everything, her phone in hand, but her attention never wavering. Bruce pulled out a science worksheet. Peter had math problems he'd been avoiding. Clark had a book report due. They arranged themselves around a low table, spreading papers and pencils with the practiced efficiency of students who'd done homework in strange places many times before. Okay, Darren said, feeling wildly out of his depth. Who wants help first? Me. Peter thrust his math sheet forward. I don't understand fractions. They don't make sense. Why can't numbers just be whole? Because the world is complicated, Darren answered, and sometimes we need to describe parts of things, not just whole things. Here, let me show you. He began explaining fractions using the only manipulatives available, crackers from Peter's snack bag. Breaking them into pieces, showing how halves and quarters related, making it physical rather than abstract. Peter's face lit up with understanding. Oh, so if I have 1 cookie and I want to share it with Clark, we each get half. Exactly. But what if Bruce wants some too? Then you'd need thirds, which is trickier but same principle. Bruce looked up from his own work. You're good at explaining things? Most adults just get frustrated when we don't understand right away. That's because most adults forget how hard it was to learn this stuff the first time, Darren replied. Everything is hard before it's easy. For the next 30 minutes, Darren helped with homework, Peter's math, Bruce's science questions about the solar system, Clark's book report about a story Darren had never read, but that he helped organize into a coherent structure. And somewhere in the midst of explaining and listening and being present, something shifted. The boys relaxed, started joking, teasing each other, including him in their small world, without even realizing they were doing it. Bruce showed him a drawing he'd done of planets. Peter shared his theory about why cats always landed on their feet. Clark read him a paragraph from his book report, with quiet pride. And Darren realized this was it. This was fatherhood. Not grand gestures or life-changing moments, just sitting on an uncomfortable waiting room floor, helping with homework that wouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but mattered enormously right now. When Faith called time, the boys protested, "But we're not done yet. Darren's helping me understand fractions." "Just 5 more minutes!" "Tomorrow," Faith said firmly. "Darren can help again tomorrow if he's here. Will you be here?" Clark asked Darren directly. "If your mom says it's okay, yes. I'll be here. Same time? Same time. Promise?" The word hung between them, heavy with significance neither of them fully understood. Because Darren was promising more than just tomorrow. He was promising to be there. To be consistent. To be the kind of person worthy of promises. "I promise," he said. Clark nodded, satisfied, and allowed Faith to usher them toward the exit. But at the door, Bruce turned back. "Hey, Darren." "Yeah? Thanks for helping, and for not being weird about it. Some adults get all awkward around us because we don't have a dad. But you just treated us normal." The irony of the statement nearly broke him. He was their dad, but treating them normal, treating them like people rather than obligations or opportunities, was apparently so rare that it merited comment. "You're welcome," Darren managed. "See you tomorrow?" "See you tomorrow." They left, Faith giving him one long, unreadable look before following her sons down the corridor. And Darren sat there on the waiting room floor, surrounded by scattered papers and pencils and crumbs, understanding that he'd just been given something precious. An hour with his sons, a glimpse into their world, a chance to be helpful without being overwhelming. It wasn't enough. Wouldn't be enough for a long time. But it was a start, and starts, he was learning, were everything. He returned to his mother's room to find her crying quietly. "Did you watch?" he asked, through the window. "Every minute," she smiled through her tears. "You were good with them, natural, better than I expected. They're incredible. Smart and funny, and so much more than I imagined." "They're yours," Lorraine said simply. "Of course they're incredible." And Faith raised them to be kind, despite having every reason to teach them bitterness. She gave them the childhood you should have had, the one I was too damaged to provide. "Mom, let me finish. I'm proud of you. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely proud. Not of your success or your wealth, but of you. For doing this, for facing what you've lost and trying to earn it back. That takes courage I never had. I'm learning from you," Darren said. "From your mistakes and from your honesty. You're teaching me, even now. Then learn this final lesson," Lorraine whispered, her strength fading. "Love isn't what you feel. It's what you do. It's being there on bad days. It's choosing to be present when absence would be easier. It's sacrificing your comfort for someone else's peace. I felt love for you your whole life, but I didn't always do love. Don't make my mistake." She closed her eyes, completely spent from the afternoon's emotions. Darren sat beside her, holding her hand, understanding that he was receiving deathbed wisdom from someone who'd learned these lessons too late to apply them fully, but not too late to pass them on. And as he sat there in the growing darkness, he made another promise, not to anyone else. To himself, he would do love, not just feel it. He would be there, even when it hurt. He would earn the title of father, one homework session at a time, and he would never, ever take for granted the privilege of being allowed to try. Chapter 7. The weight of absence days became a rhythm. Darren arrived at 2 o'clock every afternoon. Faith came with the boys. They did homework, talked, laughed sometimes. And slowly, incrementally, the walls began to lower. Not completely, not even significantly, but enough that Bruce stopped watching him with open suspicion. Enough that Peter started saving questions for him specifically. Enough that Clark occasionally chose to sit beside him instead of across from him. It was progress measured in inches when Darren wanted miles. But he was learning patience in ways he'd never had to before. His mother's condition continued to decline. Some days she was alert enough to watch them through the window, her face glowing with joy at seeing the boys interact with Darren. Other days she barely woke, her body surrendering piece by piece to the inevitable. Faith was there through all of it, caring for Lorraine with a devotion that still baffled Darren, adjusting medications, managing pain, holding the old woman's hand through the worst moments, and somehow still managing to be fully present for her sons, never letting her weariness show in front of them. "How do you do it?" Darren asked her one evening after the boys had left. They were sitting in Lorraine's room, both watching her sleep, the machines providing a steady soundtrack to their vigil. "Do what?" "Everything. Work. Raise 3 kids alone. Take care of my mother. Function on what has to be minimal sleep. How are you not completely broken?" Faith was quiet for a long moment. "Who says I'm not?" The admission stopped him. "What? You look at me and see someone managing. Someone strong. Someone who has it together." She turned to face him, and he saw the cracks she usually hid so well. "But I'm barely holding on, Darren. I'm worn thin all the time. I cry in the shower so the boys can't hear. I take pills to sleep and drink too much coffee to wake up. I feel like I'm failing at everything simultaneously." "You're not failing. Look at those boys. They're good despite me, not because of me," Faith interrupted. "They deserve so much more than I can give them. They deserve 2 parents. They deserve financial security. They deserve a mother who isn't too drained to enjoy them. But this is what they got, just me. And some days that feels like the cruelest joke in the world." Darren had never heard her speak this way. Faith always projected strength, competence, control. Seeing her vulnerable felt both intimate and terrifying. "They love you," he said softly. "Anyone can see that. Love isn't enough. Love doesn't pay rent or buy food or provide opportunities. I love them more than breathing, but sometimes I lie awake wondering if that's enough to make up for everything they're missing." "What are they missing?" "Everything," Faith said, her voice breaking. "Dance classes because I can't afford them. Sports teams because I don't have time to drive them to practice. Birthday parties at places like other kids have because the cost would break us. Simple things. Normal things. Things every child should have, but mine can't, because their mother is doing this alone." "Let me help," Darren said urgently. "Please, I have resources. I can—" "No!" The word was firm, final. "We talked about this. No money. No buying your way into their lives. If you start throwing cash at problems, it changes everything. They'll see you as the provider and me as the one who couldn't provide. I won't let you undermine what I've built just because you're guilty. That's not what I'm trying to do, isn't it?" Faith challenged. "You want to fix things. You want to make up for lost time. You want to prove you're valuable. And the easiest way for you to do that is to open your wallet. But that's not fatherhood, Darren. That's just purchasing absolution." The accusation stung because it held truth. Part of him did want to solve problems with money. It was what he knew, what he was good at. Taking that option away left him feeling useless. "Then tell me what I can do," he said. "Because sitting here watching you struggle while I have the means to help feels wrong." "You're doing it," Faith replied. "You're being here. You're helping with homework. You're learning who they are. That's what they need, not a wealthy benefactor. A present human being who gives a damn. It doesn't feel like enough." "It wouldn't," she said almost gently, "because you're used to grand gestures and big solutions. But fatherhood is small moments repeated endlessly. It's the consistency that matters, not the size of the contribution." She stood, preparing to leave, and Darren felt the familiar panic of watching her walk away, of being left alone with his inadequacy. "Faith," he called after her, "for what it's worth, I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. And the boys aren't good despite you. They're good because of you." Because you've given them something I never had. Unconditional love that doesn't come with strings or conditions or ulterior motives. She paused at the door, her back to him. Thank you for saying that. Even if you don't mean it, I mean it. Then prove it. Keep being here. Keep being present. Keep choosing them over everything else your life offers. Because declarations are easy, Darren. And I've had enough declarations to last a lifetime. She left, and once again he was alone with his dying mother and his spiraling thoughts. The truth Faith had spoken settled into him like stones. She thought he was hollow, empty, a man who'd built wealth but no real substance. And she was right. His penthouse was a monument to loneliness. His office was full of people who worked for him but didn't know him. His life was structured around achievements that felt meaningless now that he understood what actually mattered. He'd become his mother's son in all the worst ways, choosing success over connection, prioritizing control over vulnerability, building walls so high no one could reach him, then wondering why he felt alone. But unlike his mother, he was getting a chance to change, a chance to become someone different, someone better. His phone rang. His assistant, probably calling about the countless meetings he'd cancelled, the deals he'd walked away from, the company that was starting to notice his absence. He let it go to voicemail. Then he turned off his phone entirely because Faith was right. He had to choose, and for the first time in his adult life, the choice was obvious. The next afternoon, Bruce arrived with a black eye. Darren noticed immediately, his entire body going on alert in ways he didn't fully understand. Some protective instinct he hadn't known he possessed. What happened? He asked before he could stop himself. Bruce shrugged with elaborate casualness. Nothing. Just stupid kid stuff. Bruce got in a fight at school, Peter volunteered, earning a glare from his brother. Peter, shut up. Boys' language, Faith warned. But her attention was on Bruce, checking the injury with practiced hands. We talked about this. You can't solve problems with fighting. He was saying mean things about you, Bruce muttered, his jaw set stubbornly. I wasn't going to just let him. Faith's expression softened, even as she maintained her stern tone. What kind of mean things? Doesn't matter. He won't say them again. Bruce Russell, tell me what happened. The use of his full name, their last name, not Darren's, was a reminder of everything Darren had missed. Bruce was a Russell. So were Peter and Clark. They carried their mother's name because they'd never had a father to give them his. He said you were probably a... Bruce glanced at his brothers, clearly editing. A bad person. Because we don't have a dad, and you work too much, and we wear thrift store clothes. He said we were poor trash. Faith closed her eyes briefly, pain flashing across her face. When she opened them again, she was composed, but Darren could see the effort it took. Sweetheart, people say cruel things when they don't understand. Fighting doesn't change their minds. It just gets you in trouble. But I can't just let him talk about you like that. Yes, you can. Because what he thinks doesn't matter. What we know about ourselves, about our family, is what matters. Bruce's eyes filled with frustrated tears he refused to let fall. But it's not fair. We're not trash. You work so hard. You do everything for us. And people still look down on us because we don't have what other kids have. The words destroyed Darren. This child, his child, was carrying shame about their circumstances, fighting to defend his mother's honor, bearing burdens no child should have to bear. You're right, Darren found himself saying. It's not fair. Your mom is incredible. You three are incredible. And anyone who can't see that is missing out on knowing truly remarkable people. Bruce looked at him with surprise and something else. Gratitude, maybe. You really think that? I know that. Your mom has more integrity in her little finger than most people have in their entire bodies. She's raised you boys to be kind and smart and thoughtful. That's not trash. That's excellence. Then why do people treat us differently? The question came from Clark, who'd been silently observing as usual. Why do teachers talk slower to us like we're stupid? Why do other parents pull their kids away when we try to play? Why does everyone assume we're problems just because we don't have a dad? The honesty in his voice was devastating. These children had learned far too young that the world judged them for circumstances beyond their control. Faith looked stricken, clearly unaware that her sons had noticed these things, had internalized them. "Because people are often small," Darren answered, choosing his words carefully. "They judge based on appearances rather than character. They assume poverty means failure rather than understanding the 1,000 ways life can be hard. They're wrong. But that doesn't make their judgments hurt less. How do we make them stop?" Peter asked, his voice small. "You don't," Faith said gently. "You can't control what other people think or say. You can only control how you respond. And you respond by being so undeniably good, so clearly worthy, that eventually their judgments reveal them as the small people they are. Not you, but that takes forever," Bruce protested. "Yes," Faith agreed. "It does. Being underestimated is draining. Proving yourself repeatedly is draining. Living with others' low expectations is draining. But the alternative, becoming bitter or mean or small yourself, is worse." She pulled Bruce into a hug, despite his attempts to act too old for such things. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I'm sorry your life is harder because of choices I made. But I'm so proud of you for defending our family. Just find better ways to do it than fighting, okay?" "Okay," Bruce mumbled into her shoulder. Darren watched this exchange, feeling utterly helpless. His sons were suffering. His children were being judged and ostracized because they were being raised by a single mother who was doing her absolute best with limited resources. And he had the means to change everything, but had been forbidden from using them. After Faith left with the boys, Bruce heading to an after-school detention for the fight, Darren sat with his mother, his mind churning. "I can't just watch them struggle," he said aloud. "I can't sit here knowing I could make their lives easier and do nothing." "Then don't do nothing," Lorraine rasped. But be smart about it. Faith is right that you can't throw money at them. But there are other ways to help." "Like what?" "Like being there when Bruce gets bullied. Like helping Peter understand he's not stupid just because learning is hard. Like noticing when Clark goes too quiet and drawing him out. Like supporting Faith in ways that don't undermine her." She paused, breathing heavily. "Like being the partner she needed back then, the one who shares the burden rather than just writing checks. I don't know how to do that. Learn, ask, pay attention. Faith has been shouldering everything alone for so long, she probably doesn't even know how to ask for help. So you have to see what needs doing and do it. Not because you want credit, not because you're trying to prove something, but because that's what family does. Family." The word sat strange in his mouth. He'd built a successful company, but had no actual family. Had focused on legacy, without understanding that legacy wasn't about what you left behind. It was about who you left behind to carry it forward. "I'm running out of time to teach you," Lorraine said, her voice weakening. "So listen carefully. The boys will test you. They'll push boundaries. They'll see if you disappear when things get hard. Don't disappear, Darren. No matter what. Even if they're cruel. Even if they reject you. Even if it takes years for them to accept you. Don't disappear. I won't. And Faith will test you too. She'll expect you to fail because everyone else has failed her. She'll armor herself against disappointment. Your job is to be consistent enough that her armor becomes unnecessary. To prove that you're safe. That you're steady. That you're not going anywhere. How long will that take?" "As long as it takes," Lorraine echoed. "Could be months. Could be years. Could be never. Are you prepared for that?" Darren thought about his empty penthouse, his meaningless achievements, the life he'd built that felt increasingly like a prison. "Yes," he said. "I'm prepared for whatever comes." "Good." Lorraine smiled weakly. "Then maybe something good will come from my mistakes after all. Maybe those boys will get the father they deserve. And maybe Faith will finally get the partner she needed all along." She closed her eyes, and Darren wasn't sure if she'd fallen asleep or was simply too tired to continue. He sat beside her, holding her frail hand, understanding that every conversation might be their last. His phone buzzed. He'd turned it back on briefly to check if Faith needed anything. But it wasn't Faith, it was his lawyer. The message was urgent. The company was facing a crisis. Decisions needed to be made immediately. His physical presence was required. Darren stared at the message for a long moment. The old him would have left immediately, would have prioritized the business over everything else, would have told himself he could deal with personal matters later, after handling this emergency. But sitting in that hospital room, his dying mother sleeping beside him, his sons somewhere in the city facing judgments and struggles he'd caused through his absence, Darren understood something fundamental had shifted. The business would survive or it wouldn't. The crisis would be resolved or it wouldn't. But this moment, this choice, this chance to become someone different, wouldn't wait. He typed back a simple message: "Handle it without me. I'm unavailable indefinitely." Then he turned off his phone again, because Faith had been right about everything. He had built wealth, but no real substance. He was a stranger even to himself. But he didn't have to stay that way. He could choose differently, be different, become someone worth knowing. It would be hard, would cost him things he'd spent years building, would require humility and patience and sustained effort with no guarantee of success. But his sons were worth it. Faith was worth it. And maybe, if he worked hard enough, he'd discover he was worth it too. Outside the window, the city moved through its rhythms. People pursuing their ambitions, chasing their definitions of success, building their own hollow lives. Darren had been one of them, but not anymore. Now he was just a man sitting beside his dying mother, waiting for the chance to help his son with homework. It wasn't much, but it was real. And real, he was learning, mattered more than everything else combined. Chapter 8. Innocence asks questions. The hospital had become Darren's entire world. He moved through its corridors with the familiarity of someone who'd memorized every turn, every waiting area, every place where natural light managed to penetrate the institutional gloom. His penthouse sat empty. His office chair remained vacant. His company continued operating without him, proving what he'd suspected. He'd never been as essential as he'd believed. But here, in this space of sickness and hope and slow redemption, he was beginning to matter, not in grand ways, not in the sweeping gestures he'd once imagined fatherhood required, but in small moments that accumulated into something resembling presence. Bruce had started asking him for help with science projects. Peter saved his toughest math problems for their afternoon sessions. Clark had begun reading him passages from books unprompted, seeking approval Darren tried to give without overdoing it. They still didn't know he was their father. That truth remained locked away, waiting for a moment Faith deemed appropriate. But they were beginning to accept him as someone safe, someone consistent, someone who was there when he said he would be. It wasn't enough. Would never be enough to make up for the years he'd missed. But it was something. His mother's decline had accelerated. The doctors spoke in euphemisms that all meant the same thing. Days, not weeks. She slept more than she woke now, her moments of clarity becoming precious and rare. But when she was awake, she watched the boys with an intensity that suggested she was trying to memorize them, to carry their faces into whatever came next. Tell them, she'd whispered to Darren during one of these lucid moments. Soon, they need to know before I'm gone. Faith says, I know what Faith says, but those boys deserve the truth. And you deserve the chance to claim them before it's too late. Too late for what? For me to see it. For them to have one grandmother who acknowledges them openly. For you to step into fatherhood while someone who loves all of you is still here to witness it. But Faith remained firm. Not yet. Not until she was sure. Not until Darren had proven beyond doubt that he wouldn't disappear the moment reality became difficult. So Darren continued being there, continued helping with homework, continued existing on the periphery of his sons' lives, close enough to see everything he was missing, far enough away that his heart ached constantly with the distance. Then came the afternoon. Everything shifted. Faith arrived with the boys later than usual. She looked haggard, in ways that went beyond typical weariness. Her eyes were red. Her movements were slow, careful, as if she were afraid of shattering. What happened? Darren asked immediately, alarm rising. Nothing, everything, I don't know. She shook her head, clearly overwhelmed. I just need to sit with your mother for a while. Can you watch the boys? It was the first time she'd asked him to watch them alone. The first time she'd trusted him without her supervision. The magnitude of that trust wasn't lost on him, of course. Take all the time you need. She disappeared into Lorraine's room, closing the door behind her. Through the window, Darren could see her collapse into the chair beside the bed. Her shoulders shaking with sobs, she'd clearly been holding back. The boys watched this with worried faces. Mum's sad again, Peter observed quietly. She's been sad a lot lately. Do you know why? Darren asked gently. Bruce shrugged. She won't tell us, but I think it's about money. I heard her on the phone last night crying about rent. She didn't know I was listening. The casual revelation hit Darren like a blow. Faith was struggling financially, had been this entire time, and he'd been following her rules about not helping while she drowned. And about Dad, Clark added suddenly, his voice soft but clear. She was crying about Dad too. Darren's heart stopped. What about him? She was talking to herself. She does that sometimes when she thinks we're asleep. She was saying that Dad should be here, that she can't do this alone anymore, that she's so tired of pretending everything is okay when it's not. The three boys looked at each other, then at Darren, their faces showing emotions too complex for children to be carrying. Do you think our Dad will ever come? Peter asked, his voice small and hopeful and devastating all at once. Mom says he's away, but maybe he'll come back someday. Darren's throat closed completely. He was right here, standing in front of them. But they didn't know, couldn't know until Faith decided they were ready. I think, he said carefully, weighing every word, that your dad probably thinks about you all the time, and wishes he could be here, and is trying very hard to find a way back to you. But why did he leave? Clark pressed. If he loved us, why would he go away? Sometimes, Darren struggled to find words that were honest without being destructive, adults make terrible mistakes. They believe wrong things, they choose poorly, and by the time they realize what they've done, so much time has passed that they don't know how to fix it. But you can always fix mistakes, Bruce argued. Mom says that. She says it's never too late to make better choices. Your mom is very wise. Then why doesn't our dad make better choices? Bruce's question carried accusation and pain. Why doesn't he just come and say he's sorry and be our dad? Maybe he's trying, Darren said softly. Maybe he's working very hard to become someone worthy of being your dad. Because just appearing isn't enough if you haven't changed. If you haven't learned. If you haven't become better. Clark studied him with that unsettling intensity. Are you talking about our dad or about you? The question stopped everything. The hospital sounds faded. The world narrowed to this child's two knowing eyes. What do you mean? You said you have kids you made mistakes with, Clark reminded him. You said you're trying to become a better dad. It sounds the same. Like maybe all dads who mess up are trying to figure out the same things. Out of the mouths of children came truth adults spent lifetimes avoiding. Maybe they are, Darren admitted. Maybe every parent who's ever failed their children is asking themselves the same questions. How do I make this right? How do I prove I've changed? How do I become someone they'd want in their lives? And what's the answer? Bruce asked. How do you make it right? I don't know yet, Darren said honestly. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think it starts with being there, with being honest, with accepting that forgiveness might never come but trying anyway, because they deserve better than absence. Peter had been quiet during this exchange, but now he spoke up. Do your kids know you're trying? I hope so. I hope they can see that I'm here, that I'm not going anywhere, that even though I can't fix the past, I'm committed to being better in the future. I bet they can see it, Peter said with the absolute certainty of childhood. Kids always know when adults really care, even when the adults think they're hiding it. Darren's eyes burned. These boys, his boys, were trying to comfort him about a situation they didn't even know they were part of. Can I ask you something? Clark said suddenly. And you have to answer honestly. Okay, do you think our dad loves us, even though he's not here? The question destroyed him, because how could he answer honestly without revealing everything? How could he make promises for a person they didn't know was standing right in front of them? "Yes," he said, his voice breaking. "I think your dad loves you more than anything in the world. I think he thinks about you every single day. I think missing you hurts him in ways he can't even describe. And I think he'd give up everything he has for the chance to be your dad the way you deserve." "Then why isn't he here?" Bruce demanded, frustration breaking through. "If all that's true, why isn't he here?" "Because," Darren stopped, unsure how to proceed. "Because sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to prove yourself. Sometimes you have to earn back trust that was broken. And that takes time." "How much time?" Peter asked. "How long do we have to wait?" "I don't know, buddy. I wish I did. But I don't think it's about time. I think it's about being there consistently. About proving through actions instead of declarations that you've really changed." Clark moved closer, his small face serious. "Is that what you're doing? With your kids? Being there until they believe you?" "Yes." "Do you think it's working?" Darren looked at these three boys who'd let him into their lives in small ways, who'd started trusting him with homework and questions and small pieces of their inner worlds, who didn't know they were answering his question just by being here. "I hope so," he said. "I really hope so." "Well, I think your kids are lucky," Bruce said with finality, "because at least you're trying. At least you're here. That's more than our dad is doing." The irony was unbearable. Darren was here, was trying, but his presence didn't count because they didn't know who he was. His effort was invisible because faith had built walls around the truth. "Bruce," Clark said thoughtfully, "what if our dad is trying but we just can't see it yet? What if he's close, but Mom hasn't told us because she's protecting us?" Bruce frowned. "Why would she need to protect us from our own dad?" "Because maybe she's scared," Peter suggested. "Maybe she's scared he'll leave again, or that we'll get hurt. Mom's always scared about things hurting us." These children understood more than any adult gave them credit for. They'd analyzed their situation with clarity that was both impressive and heartbreaking. "Your mom loves you very much," Darren said. "Everything she does is to protect you. Even when her choices don't make sense to you, they come from love." "We know," all three chorused in unison. A long silence fell. The boys seemed to be processing something, exchanging looks that suggested wordless communication born from sharing a womb and a childhood. Finally, Bruce spoke. "Darren, can I ask you something weird?" "Sure. Are you—" He paused, searching for words. "You're around a lot. You help us with homework. You're here every day. You look at us like—" He trailed off, frustrated by his inability to articulate what he sensed. "Like what?" Darren's heart pounded. "Like we're important," Bruce finished. "Like we matter more than anything. The way Mom looks at us. Nobody else looks at us like that." Peter nodded agreement. "And you kind of look like us." Clark noticed it first, but we all see it. "You have our nose and our chin. And sometimes when you smile, it's like looking in a mirror." Clark took a step closer, his eyes searching Darren's face. "And you're here every single day. You canceled work to be here? We heard you on the phone once, telling someone that nothing was more important than being here. Why would you do that for kids who aren't yours?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility and hope and fear. Darren looked at these three boys, his sons, who'd figured out something they weren't supposed to know yet. He thought about faith's rules, about waiting for permission, about respecting boundaries, but he also thought about honesty, about these children deserving truth, about his mother dying and wanting to see them know before she was gone. "What do you think?" he asked quietly. "Why do you think I'd do that?" Bruce's eyes went wide. Peter's mouth dropped open, and Clark simply nodded, as if confirming something he'd known all along. "Because you're him," Clark whispered. "You're our dad." The words hung in the air between them, truth finally spoken, impossible to unsay. "Are you?" Bruce demanded, his voice rising. "Are you our dad?" Darren's eyes filled with tears he couldn't control. "Yes," he said, his voice breaking. "Yes, I'm your dad. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry you had to wonder and wait and hurt. I'm so sorry for everything." The three boys stared at him, processing this confirmation of what they'd suspected. Their faces showed confusion, anger, hope, betrayal, every emotion possible cycling through in rapid succession. "Did Mom know?" Peter asked. "That you were here? Did she know you're our dad?" "Yes." "And she didn't tell us?" Bruce's voice rose with betrayal. "She let us think you were just some random person. She lied to us." "She was protecting you," Darren said quickly. "She was making sure I was worthy before letting me disrupt your lives. She was being a good mom by lying." Bruce's eyes filled with angry tears. "That's not protecting. That's treating us like babies who can't handle the truth." The door to Lorraine's room opened. Faith stepped out, her face still tear-stained, and froze when she saw the scene. 4 males facing each other. 3 boys with tears streaming down their faces. One man looking guilty and devastated. "What happened?" she demanded, fear in her voice. "What's going on?" "They figured it out," Darren said quietly. "They asked me directly, and I couldn't lie to them, Faith. I couldn't look them in the eyes and pretend to be someone I'm not." Faith's face went pale, then red, then pale again. "You told them?" "After I specifically said, 'We asked him,'" Clark interrupted. "We put it together. We're not stupid, Mom. We can see. We can think. And we asked him directly if he was our dad. And he should have redirected you to me," Faith said, her voice sharp with fury and fear. "We had an agreement, Darren. You broke it. I'm sorry, but they deserved the truth. They're smart kids. They'd already figured it out. What was I supposed to do, lie? Destroy their trust in me before it even had a chance to build? You were supposed to respect my boundaries." Faith's voice broke. "You were supposed to let me handle this in my way, in my time." "Your way was never telling them," Darren shot back. "Your way was keeping me on the outside forever because you're so afraid of being hurt again that you can't see they're being hurt by not knowing." The boys looked between them, watching their parents fight about them, and something in their faces broke. "Stop!" Bruce shouted. "Just stop fighting. You're fighting about us like we're not even here, like we don't get a say in our own lives." Peter was crying openly now. "I don't understand. If you're our dad, why weren't you here before? Why now? What changed?" And Clark, quiet Clark, asked the question that cut deepest. "Do you even want to be our dad? Or are you just here because you feel guilty?" The 3 questions hung in the air, each one requiring an answer Darren wasn't sure how to give. Faith moved quickly, gathering her sons toward her, creating a protective barrier between them and Darren. "Boys, let's go. We'll talk about this at home, away from here." "No!" Bruce pulled away from her. "I want answers now." "I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being protected from stuff I'm old enough to understand. Bruce, please, he's our dad." Bruce's voice cracked with emotion. "Our actual dad, and you didn't tell us. You made us think he was just some random person helping with homework. How is that okay?" Faith looked destroyed, torn between her children and the man who'd failed them all. "I was trying to protect you. From what?" Peter asked. "From having a dad? From getting hurt?" "Mom, we're already hurt. We've been hurt our whole lives, wondering why we weren't good enough for him to stay." "That's not—" Faith started, but her voice failed. Darren stepped forward, his hands raised in surrender. "You are good enough. You've always been good enough. This isn't about you, any of you. This is about me being a coward, about me believing lies, about me failing to fight for what mattered. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. I know that's hard to believe. I know I haven't earned your trust, but I'm staying, and I'm going to prove it." "How?" Clark asked, his face streaked with tears. "How do you prove something like that?" "By being here," Darren said, dropping to his knees so he was at their eye level. "Every single day. For homework. For bad days. For good days. For everything in between. By being there even when it's hard. Even when you're angry at me. Even when you don't want me there. I'm here anyway because that's what fathers do. But you didn't before," Bruce accused. "You weren't there before. Why should we believe you'll stay now?" "Because I didn't know before," Darren said, his voice raw. "Your mom tried to tell me. I didn't listen. I believed terrible lies about her. I walked away without looking back. And I've regretted it every day since I learned the truth. I can't change the past. I can't give you back the years I missed. But I can give you every day going forward. If you'll let me, The boys looked at each other, that wordless communication passing between them again. Finally, Bruce spoke. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I know. I don't know if I want you as a dad. I understand. But—" Bruce's voice wavered. "But maybe I want the chance to figure it out. Maybe I want to see if you're telling the truth about staying." It was the smallest opening, the tiniest possibility, but it was more than Darren deserved. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for even considering it." Peter moved closer, studying Darren's face. "Do we call you Dad now? Or still Darren? I don't know what to do." "Whatever feels right to you," Darren said. "There's no rush. No pressure. You call me whatever you're comfortable with." Clark hadn't said anything, just stood there crying silently, his small body shaking. Darren wanted to reach for him, to comfort him, but didn't dare move without permission. Faith was crying too, her hands covering her mouth. Watching her sons process this revelation she tried so hard to control. "I'm sorry," she said to them. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting you. But maybe I was just protecting myself. Maybe I was the one who wasn't ready." Bruce turned to her. "Why didn't you tell us? When did you know he was here?" "From the beginning. When he came to the hospital. I knew. And you just let us hang out with him without telling us?" "I needed to be sure," Faith said through her tears. "I needed to know he wouldn't disappear again. That he was serious. That he'd actually changed. I couldn't risk you getting attached to him only to have him leave." "But that's not fair," Peter said quietly. "We should have gotten to decide. We should have known the truth and gotten to choose if we wanted to give him a chance." Faith nodded, accepting the criticism. "You're right. I was wrong. I was so focused on controlling the situation that I forgot you three are people with your own feelings and choices. I'm sorry." The five of them stood there in the hospital corridor, a family that had never been whole, trying to figure out if wholeness was even possible. Finally Clark spoke, his voice small and broken. "I just want to know one thing." "Anything," Darren promised. "If Mom had told you about us back then, before we were born, would you have wanted us?" The question stabbed through every defense Darren had, because he didn't know the answer. The man he'd been back then might not have. Might have accused Faith of lying. Might have demanded proof. Might have made everything worse. "I don't know," he admitted, and saw the pain flash across all three boys' faces. "The man I was back then was so wrapped up in himself, so convinced of his own righteousness, that I honestly don't know if I would have stepped up the way you deserved. But I know this. I wish I had been that person. I wish I'd been strong enough and brave enough and good enough to fight for you, to see through the lies, to choose you over everything else. I wasn't, and I'll spend the rest of my life regretting that. But I am that person now, or I'm trying to be, and if you give me the chance, I'll spend every day proving it. It wasn't the answer they wanted, but it was honest. And honesty, Darren was learning, mattered more than comfort. The boys looked at each other again, and Darren could see them making a choice, not about forgiveness that would take time, but about possibility, about whether to slam the door completely or leave it slightly ajar. "Okay," Bruce said finally. "You can stay, for now. But if you mess up, if you disappoint us, if you prove Mom was right to not trust you, then you're done. Forever. Understand?" "I understand. And we're going to test you," Peter added. "We're going to be difficult and angry, and probably mean sometimes, because we have a lot of feelings about this." "I expect nothing less." Clark simply nodded, his tear-stained face showing complete depletion. "Can we go home now, Mom?" "I'm tired." Faith gathered them close, and for a moment Darren thought they'd leave without another word. But at the elevator, Bruce turned back. "Darren," he called. "Or Dad. I don't know what to call you. Either is fine. Will you be here tomorrow?" "Yes, same time, same place, every day. I promise." "Okay, we'll see you tomorrow then." The elevator doors closed, taking his family away, and Darren stood alone in the corridor trying to process what had just happened. Everything had changed. The secret was out. His sons knew who he was, and somehow, impossibly, they were willing to give him a chance. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. But it was possibility, and possibility was everything. Chapter 9. The breaking of a man the next day came with the weight of judgment. Darren arrived early, as he always did now, but this time everything felt different. Yesterday his sons hadn't known who he was. Today they did. Yesterday he'd been a safe stranger helping with homework. Today he was the father who'd abandoned them. He'd spent the night in his empty penthouse, unable to sleep, replaying every moment of the revelation. The hurt in their eyes, the anger in Bruce's voice, the confusion in Peter's questions, the devastating directness of Clark's need to know if he'd been wanted. His reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a man he barely recognized, hollow-eyed, unshaven, wearing yesterday's clothes because he couldn't summon the energy to care about appearance. The veneer of success had cracked completely, revealing the broken person underneath. He'd destroyed everything. Broken Faith's trust by revealing the truth before she was ready. Traumatized his sons by confirming what they'd suspected but weren't prepared to know. Shattered the careful boundaries Faith had established to protect them all. And for what? Because he couldn't handle 3 children asking him an honest question. Because his guilt demanded confession, even when confession served his needs more than theirs. His phone buzzed. A message from Faith: "We need to talk." Before the boys arrive, his stomach dropped. This was it. She was going to tell him he'd ruined everything. That he'd proven her worst fears correct. That he was no longer welcome in their lives. He'd earned this, deserved this. Had walked directly into the one boundary she'd made absolutely clear and shattered it because he couldn't control himself. When he reached the hospital, Faith was waiting in the same consultation room where they'd talked before. Her face was drawn, completely drained in ways that went beyond physical tiredness. She'd clearly spent the night crying. "The boys didn't sleep," she said without preamble. "They stayed up asking questions I couldn't answer." Bruce was angry. Peter was confused. Clark was just quiet, that terrible quiet he gets when he's trying to process something too big for his mind to hold. "Faith, I'm so sorry." "Don't." She held up a hand. "Don't apologize yet. Let me finish." He nodded, bracing himself. "You broke our agreement," she continued. "You did exactly what I asked you not to do. You put your needs, your need to be honest, your need to be acknowledged, your need to be their father right now, instead of earning it slowly, above their needs, above what was best for them." Each word landed like a physical blow. "I know, you're right. I should have redirected them to you. Should have respected your authority as their mother. Should have remembered that this isn't about me." "But," Faith said, and he looked up in surprise. "But they were going to figure it out anyway. They're too smart, too observant. They'd already connected all the dots. So maybe I was wrong to try to control it so tightly. Maybe I was protecting myself more than them." "You were protecting them," Darren said firmly. "You were making sure I was worthy before letting me destroy their sense of security." "You were being a good mother, was I?" Faith's voice broke. "Because right now my sons are hurt and confused and angry. Bruce feels betrayed that I lied to him. Peter is questioning everything he thought he knew. And Clark asked me this morning if I'd been planning to never tell them. If I was going to let them grow up never knowing their father was right there. What did you say?" "I told him the truth. That I don't know. That I was so scared of them being hurt that I couldn't see I was hurting them differently by keeping the secret." She wiped her eyes roughly. "They want to see you today. Want to talk more. But Darren, I need you to understand something. Anything. This doesn't mean we're a family now. This doesn't mean everything is fixed. This is the beginning of the hardest part, not the end of the difficult period. They know who you are now, which means every promise you make matters more. Every disappointment will cut deeper. Every time you choose something else over them will confirm their worst fears, that they aren't enough to make you stay." "I won't." "You don't know that," Faith interrupted. "None of us know that. Because life is going to test you. Work will demand your attention. Opportunities will require you to travel. Moments will come when being their father is inconvenient or uncomfortable or boring. And in those moments, you'll have to choose. Will you be the man who walks away, or the one who stays?" "I'll stay. I swear to you, Faith, I'll stay." She studied him with eyes that had seen too much disappointment to trust easily. "I want to believe you, for their sake, but belief isn't enough. I need to see it. Day after day, month after month. Proof that you've actually changed." "How do I prove that?" "By being there, by being uncomfortable, by sitting through their anger and hurt without defending yourself, by accepting that forgiveness might never fully come, by loving them even when they push you away." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "By being the partner I needed back then, the one who shares the burden instead of adding to it." The room fell silent, except for the distant sounds of the hospital. Darren wanted to make promises, wanted to guarantee he'd be everything they needed. But Faith was right. Declarations meant nothing. Only actions would matter now. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "What? Do you hate me? For everything I did? For believing the lies? For walking away? For missing 6 years of their lives? Do you hate me, Faith?" She was quiet for a long time, her eyes distant. Finally she answered, "No, I did for a while. Hated you so much it consumed me. But hate takes energy I couldn't afford. So I let it go. Not because you deserved forgiveness, but because I needed peace." "Then what do you feel toward me now?" "Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes I see you with the boys, and I remember the man I loved, the one who made me laugh, the one who made me believe in forever. And I ache for what we could have been. But then I remember that man chose to believe I'd betrayed him, chose pride over trust, chose his mother's poison over my truth. And I realized the man I loved might never have existed, might have just been a fantasy I constructed because I was young and foolish. The assessment destroyed him because it was fair. He had been that man, had made those choices, had proven himself unworthy of the love she'd offered. "I want to be better," he said desperately, "not just for the boys. For you, for all of us. I want to build what we should have had back then." "Then prove it," Faith said simply. "Stop talking about what you want and start doing the work. Be there, be present. Choose us over everything else. Do it for months, for years. Do it so consistently that eventually maybe we'll all believe you're serious." A nurse knocked on the door. "Ms. Rossell, your sons are here. They're asking for you." Faith stood, smoothing her clothes, trying to compose herself. "Last chance, Darren. Last chance to walk away before this gets harder. Because once you're their father publicly, officially, there's no going back. You can't change your mind later. You can't decide it's too difficult. You're either all in or you need to leave now." Darren stood too, meeting her eyes directly. "I'm all in. Whatever it takes. I'm not leaving." "Then let's go face them together." They walked into his mother's room to find the 3 boys already there, clustered around Lorraine's bed. His mother was awake, more alert than she'd been in days, and she was talking to them quietly. "Your father is a good man who made terrible mistakes," Lorraine was saying. "But good people can choose poorly and still deserve a chance at redemption. The question is whether you're willing to give him that chance." "But he left us," Bruce said, his voice thick with hurt. "He didn't even know we existed, and he was fine with that. How do we forgive that?" "You don't have to forgive it," Lorraine replied. "Not right away, maybe not ever. But you can choose to see who he is now rather than who he was then. People change, sweetheart. They grow, they learn. Your father learned that success means nothing without family. Can you give him the chance to prove he's learned?" Peter noticed Faith and Darren in the doorway. "Mom, Darren, Grandma Lorraine was just telling us about Dad, about him, about—" He trailed off, clearly unsure what to call Darren now. "It's okay," Darren said gently. "Call me whatever feels right. There's no rush to figure it out." Clark slid off his chair and walked directly to Darren. He stood there looking up, his face serious. "I have more questions." "Okay, I'll answer anything you want to know. Do you love us?" The question should have been simple. Instead, it felt impossibly complex, because love without action was meaningless. And he'd spent 6 years not acting, not knowing, not being there. "Yes," Darren said, his voice breaking. "I love you more than I have words to express. All 3 of you. Even before I knew you existed, some part of me was incomplete. And now that I know you, now that I've seen who you are, I love you so much it hurts. Then why weren't you there?" Clark's voice rose, all his carefully controlled emotions beginning to spill over. If you loved us, why didn't you fight to find us? Why didn't you question the lies? Why did you just give up on Mom without even trying? Because I was a coward, Darren admitted, tears streaming down his face now. Because I was arrogant and stupid, and so wrapped up in my own pride that I couldn't see the truth. Because I let fear make me cruel, and doubt make me weak. Because I failed in every possible way. That's not good enough, Bruce shouted, his anger finally breaking through. Saying you were stupid doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give us back the years we spent wondering what was wrong with us. It doesn't erase all the Father's Day cards we never got to give anyone. It doesn't change the fact that we grew up ashamed because we didn't have a dad like normal kids. You're right, Darren said, his voice shaking. Nothing I say will fix that. Nothing I do will erase those years. I can't change the past. I can only try to make the future different. But how do we know you won't leave again? Peter asked, his face wet with tears. How do we know this isn't temporary? That you'll stick around when it gets hard? Darren looked at Faith, at his mother, at these 3 boys who deserved so much better than what they'd gotten. And something inside him finally, completely broke. He dropped to his knees in the middle of the hospital room. Nurses walking past stopped to look. Other families in the hallway turned to stare. His mother watched with tears streaming down her face. Faith stood frozen, her expression unreadable, and Darren wept. Not quiet, controlled tears, but loud, ugly, broken sobs that came from a place deeper than shame. The kind of crying that only happens when every defense has crumbled, when pride has been completely destroyed, when the weight of accumulated failures finally crushes the person carrying them. I'm sorry, he choked out between sobs. I'm so sorry. To all of you. Bruce Peter Clark, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry you had to wonder and hurt and feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough. You were more than enough. It was me who wasn't enough. His hands covered his face, his whole body shaking. Faith, I'm sorry for believing lies about you, for walking away, for not fighting, for robbing you of a partner when you needed one most, for making you carry everything alone, for 6 years of absence when I should have been there. He looked up at his mother through his tears. Mom, I'm sorry for being the son you made me into, for choosing pride over love, for learning all your worst lessons and none of your best ones, for wasting years on things that don't matter while losing everything that does. Doctors and nurses had gathered in the doorway now, drawn by the commotion. But Darren couldn't care about the audience, couldn't care about dignity or appearance or what anyone thought. He was broken, completely, finally, and breaking was the only honest thing left to do. I don't deserve another chance, he said, looking at his sons through tears. I don't deserve to be your father. I don't deserve to call myself your dad. But I'm begging you, please, please let me try. Let me prove that I can be better, that I can be there, that I can choose you over everything else, that I can be the father you deserved from the beginning. Bruce was crying too now, his anger giving way to confusion and pain. Peter had his arms wrapped around Faith's leg. Clark stood perfectly still, watching Darren with those 2 knowing eyes. I'll do anything, Darren continued desperately. I'll go to therapy. I'll change my life completely. I'll prove myself every single day. Just don't close the door completely. Don't decide I'm irredeemable. Give me the chance to earn my way back into your lives. Faith moved then, dropping to her knees beside him. She didn't touch him, but her presence was support enough. Darren, she said softly, breathe. You're spiraling. I can't lose them, he gasped. Not now. Not when I finally understand what I'm losing. Please, Faith, please help me fix this. She looked at her sons, at the man falling apart in front of them, at Lorraine, who was watching with an expression of profound sadness and hope. Boys, Faith said gently. Come here. They approached slowly, uncertain. Faith gathered them close, creating a small circle of the 5 of them on the hospital room floor. Your father is broken right now, she told them. He's realizing everything he's lost, everything he threw away, and it hurts him more than he can handle. But pain isn't the same as change. Being sorry isn't the same as being better. What do we do with someone who's hurt us but says they want to change? We give them a chance to prove it. Bruce said quietly, repeating lessons Faith had clearly taught them. But we're careful, Peter added. We protect ourselves. We don't just believe declarations. We watch actions, Clark finished. We see if they match what they say. Exactly, Faith confirmed. She turned to Darren. You have our attention. You have this moment. But this is just the beginning. The real test starts tomorrow. And the day after. And every day for months or years. Are you ready for that? Darren nodded, unable to speak. Then get up, Faith said firmly. Stand up. Look at your sons. And tell them what you're committing to. Not vague promises. Specific actions. What are you going to do differently? He struggled to his feet, wiping his face, trying to gather himself. The boys watched him with a mixture of hope and skepticism. I'm going to be here, he said, his voice still shaky but clearer. Every day after school. For homework, for talking, for whatever you need. I'm going to learn everything about you. Your favorite foods, your fears, your dreams, your pet peeves. I'm going to come to school events if you'll let me. I'm going to read the books you're reading so we can talk about them. I'm going to prove day by day that you can count on me. What about your work? Bruce challenged. It's not important, Darren said. Not compared to you three. I've already stepped back from most of it. I'll do whatever's minimally necessary to keep things running. But you're my priority now. What about when we're annoying? Peter asked. Or when we test you on purpose? Then I'll be patient. I'll understand that you have every right to test me, and I'll keep being there anyway. What about when Mom doesn't want you around? Clark asked, looking at Faith. Because she's going to have days when she doesn't, when having you here is too painful or too complicated. What then? The question showed just how perceptive Clark was, how deeply he understood the complicated dynamics at play. Then I'll respect her boundaries, Darren said. But I'll make sure you three know I'm still available, that even if I'm not physically here, you can reach me, that my commitment is to you, not to proximity. Lorraine spoke up from her bed, her voice weak but clear. Faith, darling. Can I say something? Faith nodded, moving closer to the bed. You've carried this burden alone for too long, Lorraine said. You've been both mother and father. You've sacrificed everything, and you've done an extraordinary job. But you don't have to do it alone anymore, not if you're willing to let someone help. I don't know if I can trust him, Faith admitted. I don't know if I'll ever trust him the way I did before. Then don't, Lorraine replied. Don't trust him, but give him the opportunity to earn it. Let him prove himself through actions, not declarations. And if he fails, when he inevitably messes up because all humans mess up, judge him by how he responds to failure, not by the failure itself. She reached out a frail hand toward Darren. Come here, son. He moved to her bedside. She took his hand and Faith's, bringing them together. I'm dying, she said simply. We all know it. I have days, maybe hours, and I need to know before I go that I've done at least this one thing right. That I've helped give these boys their father. That I've given you two the chance to build something real. She looked at Faith. I destroyed what you had before. I manipulated and lied and ruined everything. But let me do this. Let me use my last breaths to help fix what I broke. Give Darren the chance to prove himself. Not for me. Not for him. For Bruce and Peter and Clark. They deserve a father. And he's trying so hard to become one. Fresh tears streamed down Faith's face. I'm scared. I'm so scared of them being hurt again. Of letting him in and having him leave. Of building something that falls apart. Being scared is smart, Lorraine said. But don't let fear stop you from giving them the family they deserve. Make him prove it. Make him work harder than he's ever worked for anything. But give him the chance. Faith looked at her sons. At the man who'd failed them all. At the dying woman who'd caused so much pain, but was trying to repair it. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, but we do this my way. With boundaries. With rules, with the boys' well-being at the center of every decision. Yes, Darren agreed immediately. Whatever you say, whatever rules you need, I'll follow them. And the first time, the very first time you disappoint them, we reevaluate everything. I understand. And you accept that forgiveness might never fully come. That they might never call you dad. That this might always be complicated. I accept that. And you commit to therapy. To working on yourself, To understanding why you made the choices you made so you don't repeat them. Yes, all of it, anything. Faith turned to her sons. What do you three think? Do we give him this chance? The boys looked at each other, that wordless communication happening again. Finally, Bruce spoke. One chance. But if you mess up, you're done. Peter nodded agreement. And you have to really listen to us. Not just pretend to listen while thinking about other stuff. Clark simply studied Darren with those intense eyes. And you have to love Mom too, not just us. Because she's part of this family. And she deserves someone who sees how amazing she is. The last statement caught everyone off guard. Faith's face flushed. Darren's eyes widened, and Lorraine smiled weakly from her bed. Clark's right, Lorraine whispered. Faith is part of this. Don't forget that, Darren. Don't make the mistake of thinking you can just be a father to the boys while ignoring their mother. They're a package, a family. And if you want to be part of it, you have to respect and value all of them. Darren looked at Faith, really looked at her. Saw the complete depletion carved into her face. The strength that had kept her standing through impossible circumstances. The love she had for her sons that overshadowed everything else. The woman she'd become while he'd been absent. I see her, he said quietly. I see how extraordinary she is, and I know I don't deserve her forgiveness or her trust. But I'll spend every day trying to become someone who might eventually deserve both. Faith met his eyes, and something passed between them. Not love, not yet, maybe not ever, but acknowledgement, possibility, the fragile beginning of something that might, with enormous work and time, become real. Okay then, she said. We try, but Darren, don't let me down. Don't let them down. Because if you do, you'll prove everything I've feared about you. And there won't be another chance after this one. I won't let you down, Darren promised. Any of you. I swear it. The boys moved closer, forming a small circle around him. Not embracing him, not calling him Dad, but not pushing him away either. And in that moment, standing in a hospital room, surrounded by the family he'd lost and was fighting to regain, with his dying mother watching and a future that was uncertain but possible, Darren understood something fundamental. Redemption wasn't a destination. It was a daily choice, a commitment made fresh every morning to be there, be present, and choose love over everything else. He'd spent years choosing wrong, building wealth but no real substance. But now he knew. Now he understood. And now he had the chance to spend the rest of his life proving that he'd learned. It wouldn't be easy. Would probably be the hardest thing he'd ever do. But his sons were worth it. Faith was worth it, and maybe if he worked hard enough, he'd discover he was worth it too. Chapter 10. The Long Road to Redemption. The days that followed were unlike anything Darren had experienced. There was no manual for navigating newly acknowledged fatherhood with children who knew you'd abandoned them. No guidebook for earning trust you'd shattered before it even had the chance to form. But he was there, every single day, 2 o'clock, without fail. Sometimes the boys were warm, asking him questions and including him in their world. Other days they were cold, barely acknowledging his presence, making him work for every scrap of connection. And some days they were actively hostile, testing him with cruel questions and deliberate provocations designed to make him leave. He never left. His mother died on the 5th day. She slipped away peacefully in the early morning, Faith holding one hand and Darren holding the other. Her last words were to the boys, who'd been allowed in to say goodbye. Take care of each other, she'd whispered. Be a family. That's all I ever wanted. The funeral was small. Faith and the boys came, which felt like both a gift and a test. Bruce wore a suit that was slightly too small. Peter cried throughout the service. Clark stood silent and watchful, processing grief in his own internal way, and Darren delivered the eulogy. For a woman who'd destroyed his life and then spent her final days trying to repair the damage. My mother made terrible mistakes, he told the small gathering. She manipulated, she lied, she prioritized control over connection. But in the end, she taught me the most important lesson I've ever learned, that it's never too late to tell the truth. Never too late to try to make things right. She died knowing she'd failed in many ways, but hoping she'd succeeded in this one thing, bringing a family together. After the service, as people dispersed, Faith pulled him aside. That was generous, she said. Considering everything she did, she was human, flawed and complicated and ultimately trying to do better. Isn't that all any of us can hope for? Faith studied him for a long moment. The boys want to talk to you. Away from me. They asked specifically if they could have time with you alone. His heart raced. Are you comfortable with that? No, she admitted, but I'm trying to trust your commitment. Trying to give them space to build their own relationship with you, independent of my feelings. Thank you for taking that risk. Don't thank me yet. They might be planning to tell you off, to yell at you without me there to stop them. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared for whatever they need to say. She led him to where the boys waited near his mother's car. They looked small in their funeral clothes, united in that silent way siblings develop when facing something difficult together. We'll be right over there, Faith said, pointing to a bench within view but out of earshot. You have 15 minutes. When she was gone, the four of them stood in awkward silence. Finally, Bruce spoke. We've been talking, he said, his voice carefully controlled. The three of us. About you. About what we want. Okay, I'm listening. We don't want you to try to buy us, Peter said quickly. We don't need expensive stuff or fancy trips. We just need you to be there, like you have been. But more how? We want you to come to school things, Bruce continued. Not right away. Not until we're ready. But eventually. We want you there for concerts and games and conferences. We want you to be the person we can point to and say, that's our dad. Darren's throat closed. I'd be honored. And we want you to help Mom, Clark added. She's worn thin all the time. She pretends she's not, but we can tell. She needs someone to share the hard stuff with. Not money, just someone to talk to. Someone to help with decisions. Someone to make her smile sometimes. I want to do all of that. If she'll let me, she will, Bruce said with certainty. She acts tough, but she's lonely too. We can see it. She hasn't dated anyone since you. Hasn't even tried, because she was too busy being everything for us and too scared to let anyone else in. The boys exchanged another of their looks. Then Bruce took a deep breath. We decided we want to try calling you Dad. Not all the time. Maybe just sometimes at first. But we want to practice. Want to see how it feels. Is that okay? Darren dropped to his knees for the second time in a week, but this time not from breaking, from overwhelming gratitude. Yes, he managed through tears. Yes, that's more than okay. That's everything. Peter stepped closer, his small hand reaching out tentatively to touch Darren's shoulder. Don't cry, Dad. We're giving you a chance. That's good news. The word Dad, spoken directly to him for the first time, nearly destroyed him. I know. I'm crying because I'm happy, because I'm grateful. Because you three are the most extraordinary people I've ever met, and I can't believe I get to be your father. You haven't earned it yet, Bruce reminded him, but his voice was softer. You're on probation. You have to prove yourself every day, I know. And I will. Clark moved closer too, studying Darren's face with that intense gaze. Why are you really doing this? Tell us the truth. Is it guilt? Is it because Grandma Lorraine made you? Is it because you think you're supposed to? Darren met his eyes directly. At first, yes. It was guilt. Guilt and shock and the horror of realizing what I'd missed. But now it's because being with you three is the only time I feel like I matter. When I'm helping Bruce with science, or explaining fractions to Peter, or listening to Clark read, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just present, just grateful. Just aware that this you is what I was put on this earth to do. But you have all that other stuff, Peter argued. Your company and your money and your big apartment. And none of it means anything, Darren said honestly. I have rooms full of expensive furniture I've never sat in, art I've never really looked at. A view I stopped seeing years ago. You three are real. Your mom is real. This right here, right now, is the only real thing I've had in years. Bruce nodded slowly. Okay, that's a good answer. We believe you. For now? For now is all I need. They stood there, the four of them, forming a small circle in the parking lot of a funeral home. Not quite a family yet, but the outline of one, the possibility of one. Faith approached, giving them warning. "Time's up. We need to get the boys home." "Mom," Clark said. "We told him he could call us later tonight to say goodnight. Is that okay?" Faith looked surprised but pleased. "If you three want that, yes." "That's fine." As they walked toward Faith's car, a vehicle that was clearly struggling to survive, Darren noticed Bruce looking back at him. Not with suspicion anymore, not with anger, but with something that looked like tentative hope. That evening, Darren called. Faith answered, her voice wary. "They're waiting," she said. "I told them they each get 2 minutes. Don't make them wait longer than that. Consistency matters more than length." "Understood." Bruce came first. "Hey, Dad." The word was experimental, testing how it felt in his mouth. "I just wanted to say thanks. For today, for listening, for not making promises you can't keep. Thank you for giving me the chance. Peter wants to talk now." "Bye." Peter's voice came through, smaller and more uncertain. "Dad, I'm scared. I'm scared you'll leave. I'm scared this is temporary. I'm scared we're not enough." "You are enough," Darren said fiercely. "More than enough. I'm the one who has to be enough for you. And I'm working on it every single day." "Okay, that helps." "Clark's turn." Clark's voice was thoughtful, measured. "I've been thinking about what makes a real dad. And I think it's not who's there at the beginning. It's who stays. Who chooses to be there even when it's hard. Can you do that?" "Yes, I can and I will. We'll see. Good night, Dad. Good night, boys. I love you." There was a pause, then 3 voices in unison. "We're working on that part." The honesty of it, the refusal to say something they didn't fully feel, was more valuable than false declarations would have been. Faith came back on the line. "That was good. You didn't push. Didn't demand more than they were ready to give. I meant what I said to them. And to you. I'm in this." "Darren," Faith's voice softened slightly. "I need to tell you something. And I need you to really hear me. I'm listening. Forgiveness isn't a word. It's not an apology. It's not tears or grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's being there every single day. It's learning that Bruce is afraid of thunderstorms and sitting with him when the sky gets dark. It's helping Peter with the math homework he struggles with while I'm working late. It's understanding why Clark doesn't speak much and not forcing him to fill silences with noise." She took a breath, her voice growing firmer. "It's sacrifice. Real sacrifice. Not money, you heard them say that. Time, presence, consistency. It's proof. And when it gets hard, and it will get hard. Darren, when you're tired, when work demands your attention, when your old life calls you back, when your pride tells you you've done enough, you don't get to leave. Because if you walk away a second time, these boys won't recover. And neither will I understand. Do you? Really? Because this isn't about what you want anymore. It's not about your guilt or your need for redemption or your desire to feel like you matter. It's about 3 children who deserved better from the start and are being brave enough to give you a chance to provide it now. Don't waste that bravery, Darren. Don't prove that every fear I've ever had about you was justified. I won't. I swear to you, Faith, I won't. Then prove it. Every day. In small ways and large ones. Be the father they draw in their pictures. Be the name they write on Father's Day cards. Be the person they think of when they're scared or hurt or happy. Be their dad, not just in title, but in action. I will be, I am. Starting now and continuing forward. There was a long silence, then Faith spoke one last time. We have a long road ahead of us. Years of building trust. Years of proving yourself. Years of being there when it's hard. Are you ready for that? Yes, more ready than I've been for anything in my life. Then we'll see you tomorrow. 2:00. Don't be late, I won't be. I promise. He hung up and sat in his empty penthouse, staring out at the city that had once represented everything he wanted. Now it just looked cold, distant, meaningless. But somewhere out there were 3 boys who tentatively called him Dad. A woman who was giving him an impossible chance. A future that would be harder than anything he'd ever faced. And for the first time in his adult life, Darren Thornhill understood the difference between having everything and having what mattered. The next day, He arrived at the hospital at precisely 2 o'clock. Faith was already there with the boys, settling into their usual spot. When Bruce saw him, something shifted in the child's face. He stood, walked over, and held out his small hand. Darren looked down at that outstretched hand, understanding what it represented. Not forgiveness, not yet. Not acceptance, not completely. But willingness, possibility, the fragile beginning of trust. He reached out slowly, giving Bruce every chance to pull back, to change his mind, to decide it was too soon. Bruce didn't pull away. Their hands met, held, and in that simple gesture lived every promise Darren had made and would spend years proving. Ready to do homework, Dad? Bruce asked, the words still experimental but less uncertain. Always, Darren replied, his voice thick with emotion. I'm ready for whatever you need. Peter and Clark joined them, and together, not quite a family yet, but the outline of one, they settled into the waiting area. Faith watched from her chair, her expression guarded but not closed. Still wary, still protecting, but allowing. And as Darren helped Peter with fractions and listened to Clark read and answered Bruce's questions about planets, he understood that this was it. This was fatherhood, not grand moments or dramatic declarations. Just being there, being present, choosing them over everything else. He had years of proof ahead of him. Years of earning what should have been his from the beginning. Years of building trust one homework session at a time, but Bruce's hand was in his. Peter was leaning against his shoulder. Clark was reading aloud without being asked, and Faith was watching with eyes that held the possibility, distant but real, of something beyond co-parenting, of partnership, of the family they might have been and could still, maybe, become. The road ahead was long, uncertain, full of tests he'd have to pass and pitfalls he'd have to avoid. But Darren Thornhill had finally found his way home, and he was never, ever leaving again.